welcome to Leaps and Hounds with me, Charlotte Hawkins, and this is episode 3, Stealing with Treacle the Eater. Now I've come along to the Dogs Trust Rehoming Centre in West London. They do a brilliant amount of work with dogs. I've been a big supporter of theirs for many years now, and there are record numbers of dogs being given up, and a big reason is because of unwanted behaviours. So we are here to help, whether it's jumping up, whether it's barking, whether it's stealing. We've got a bite-sized guide to what you can do. I am joined by Kris Glover, who is the expert here, Head of Clinical Behaviour Services at the Dogs Trust. So pretty much fluent in all things dogs. And also joining us is Treacle. Now she's a beagle, she's a bit of a live wire. She is Treacle the Eater, brought in by her handler, Rachel. Look at her go. I mean, she loves a bit of jumping up as well as the food, doesn't she? Rachel, what's Treacle's story?
So Treacle is an 8-year-old beagle. She actually came on a transfer from our Penrith centre, and she loves food, as you can tell, but that sometimes can cause her to, seek other opportunities, whether that's stealing other food. She has had an incident in the past where she's stolen a whole container of liver paste and eaten the whole container, including the metal casing. Which ended up resulting in a major surgery for her. So, it can have dire consequences sometimes.
And she's been recovering from that. That's one of the reasons why she hasn't been rehomed yet, isn't it?
Yeah, she's not been available because we've been making sure that she's recovered before going home and everything's okay. But so it did result in her being held here for a while.
Well, listen, thank you very much. I know you're distracting her at the moment with the snuffle mat. That's not going to last for long, is it? So I'll let you go and take her for a walk, but thank you for that. Kris, talk us through then the 3 main reasons why dogs like Treacle steal.
So it could just be they're hungry. So we do have to sort of consider, are we feeding the right food? Are we feeding enough of that food? So also if we consider food packets, on the back it will tell you about how much food we can provide or we should be feeding dogs. But we do have to be mindful that some dogs do need a little bit more, especially if they're being exercised a little bit more. If there is any concerns that dogs appear to be always hungry, please again speak to your vet. It's really important that we make sure that medically they're fitting well, and also from a dietary perspective that they're getting out of their food exactly what they want. Dogs will also steal for attention. So this typically isn't food, but it could be toys or objects that belong to us.
So they're looking for a reaction from you?
Absolutely,
then, right?
Completely. And if we think about things that we care quite a bit about, so new shoes, slippers, or things
all the favourites.
Absolutely. So, and dogs, if we consider a slipper to a dog, that is quite like a furry toy as well.
And what's the last reason then why they might do it?
So also a dog will equally do it because they just like carrying things in their mouth. So any of our dogs that have been bred to actually retrieve, they find it quite comforting. So they might just collect objects because they like to parade them around, they like to keep them, it's something that they enjoy doing. And in that situation, what we would want to do is just make sure that they've got access to the things we don't mind them having in their mouths.
Okay, so let's go through those then. So how do you know that the stealing is because they're hungry and not just because they've got a stomach that's a bottomless pit? Because, the risk is you keep feeding them, don't you?
Absolutely. So I think, again, we need to check that we are feeding them the right amount of food. And what we can also do is, rather than giving 2 big meals a day, we might want to split up the meals into slightly smaller meals, spread over a longer period. So if we're able to do so, we could give lunch, we might give an afternoon tea, we could give a morning brunch as well for those dogs that do just want to eat a little bit often. So if we understand that actually our dogs are eating the right amount of food and enough quantity of the right amount of food, and we know that also their poop looks fine as well. Not a particularly nice conversation to have.
But talk us through then what the poo should look like for those people who want to use this method of checking.
Absolutely. So it needs to look chocolate coloured. So Cadbury's chocolate, I had to say Cadbury's chocolate. Milk chocolate coloured poop is ideal. It leaves no residue when you pick it up. So you should be able to pick it up fairly easily with a poo bag. And also it could be, so whatever's normal for your dog. So ideally we want them to at least have 2 poos a day, but you do get some dogs that might poo more or slightly less. So if we can look at the consistency of the poo just to ensure that it is fairly solid when we pick it up, and it's also a nice brown colour, chocolate brown colour. That's absolutely ideal.
There was such a science to dog poo. Right, so what if the food is right, the poo consistency is right, and they're still stealing? What do you do then?
So again, what we want to do is think about the why. So why are they doing it in that moment, or why do they do it usually? So if we have got a dog that is typically picking up things in order to get our attention, so maybe we're on a call, maybe we're working, and dog knows it's dinner time and we would normally go out for a walk. And if we're then presented with a slipper or a shoe, then probably what we want to do is just before that time, either get them out for that walk or just spend a little bit of time with their toys. If we can give them lots more reward for picking up things that actually belong to them, that we want them to collect, then it's far easier than trying to then work through they've got something. As soon as they've got something that we want back, it starts to become a little bit of a game with our dog. So what we can also do is teach them to bring things to us. So it could be quite useful, especially if they are, in the days when we used to have newspapers, we would maybe teach the dog to bring the newspaper to us. But if we can get them to actually collect things, and when they bring it over to us, it's exchanged for a piece of food, that can be quite useful as well. But yes, it's definitely understanding why is our dogs performing that behaviour, and what can we teach them that is an alternative behaviour that will stop the behaviour that we don't want happening, and therefore we can reward the behaviour that we really do want happening.
Now, what happens in the awful situation when they've stolen something that they really shouldn't have? I'm thinking like a chicken carcass or something they could choke on, something like we saw with treacle that could actually do them damage. What's the best way to get that out of their mouths?
So what we don't want to do is try to pull it out of their mouth. And I think as soon as we put too much pressure on a dog, if they've got something that we don't want, some dogs will just swallow. So in Treacle's case, we had the situation with the tube. And it could be that because in the past she's very much been competed over, or somebody's tried to remove things from her, what she's going to do is swallow it in order to keep hold of it. So we want to try and take the pressure off our dogs in those situations. It's very, very difficult. We're going to be quite frantic. But if we can try and just have a little bit of a distraction, so maybe somebody rings the doorbell, the dog might then want to bark and run to the front door to see who's getting excited to see who's there. They might have dropped the chicken carcass. If it is something that is very, very dangerous, again, we want to make sure that we didn't have that thing around, that object around in the first place, just to try and avoid that ever happening. It's a really difficult situation, but what we do not want to be doing is putting our hands in dogs' mouths to remove anything. There's a huge danger of us being bitten and the dog still swallowing the object.
You don't want that to happen at all, do
No.
you? Okay, what about if your dog is stealing just to get attention then? What can you do?
So that would be just preempting and giving our dogs attention in a very appropriate way. So be that if we have needed a break from work, so we've been working all day, we've been on our laptops, we want to get up, if we can move around with our dogs and do a little bit of playing out in the garden, take them out for a walk, just get in there and give them that sort of opportunity for doing an activity with us before they've got to the stage where they steal things to try and get attention, and remind us that we should have taken them out or we should be out in the garden playing with them.
And those dogs that like to bring us presents, how can we prevent them from picking up the things that they're not allowed? What's the best tactic for that?
So just having lots of things that they are allowed and giving them loads and loads of attention when they pick those things up. So if we consider a slipper versus a dog toy, there's not a huge amount of difference, but it's the way that we respond to them that dogs realise is different. So if we've got a dog that picks up their teddy, which is their toy, and we ignore them, but we give them lots of attention when they pick up our slipper, and we've got a dog that wants our attention, they're more likely to pick up the slipper rather than the dog toy. So we need to do opposite to what we would usually do. So they pick up the toy, lots and lots and lots of reward, and we play with them. So the dogs then start to learn, oh, when I pick up the toy, it means that I get a game. So just have lots and lots of availability of toys and things on the floor that they can have, and try and remove those things that are either dangerous or of value to us.
I didn't really care about those brand new slippers anyway, did I? Kris, thank you so much. That's all brilliant. So some great top tips there. So check your dog isn't hungry, and you can seek medical attention to check from that point of view if they are. Give something else for them to put in their mouth, like the toy, or distract, reward them for appropriate behaviour. Thank you ever so much. That's it for now. We'll be back with episode 4, which is aggression with Rocky the Reactor, coming up next time. So join us for that.
For more help with your dog, go to Dogs Trust website. There's an advice page and a behaviour support line. And on the rehoming page, there are some of the 700 dogs looking for their forever homes. You can also find out more about Treacle, the dog who featured in this episode. If you like what you've heard so far, please share with a friend and leave a review. Leaps and Hounds is hosted by me, Charlotte Hawkins, the producer is Georgie Nell, and our technical director is Milton Boyne. It's recorded at Dogs Trust, West London for Nell Media.